Hi, I'm Marcus.
And I'm Nick.
And we are Working Class Nerds.
We're the podcast that gives you no information about your favorite information.
Today is Thursday, August 23rd, 2018. You can find this awesome podcast on Google Play, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. You can find us on Twitter. I am at MarcusB814.
And I am at Nick Vern. That's Nickvern. And this week's episode, we're talking about Ootinicast with none other than the hosts themselves. For those of you that don't know, Ootinicast is not only one of the biggest, but the longest-running SWTOR podcasts out there. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Chill and Dr. SWTOR, the host of the show. Thank you for coming on the show. And what have you guys been up to this week?
Hey, thanks, Marcus, and thanks, Nick, for having us. And Dr. SWTOR, why don't you take this first?
Oh, sure. Well, I've been taking some time to play in the game as much as I can this week. I have a couple life changes going on right now. My family, we're moving, so there's boxes everywhere, but the computers are still up, so I can be on the podcast today. And so
it's about the same as Marcus's basement right now.
Yeah, it's unavoidable sometimes. You just end up having stuff. So I've been helping Ootini Rage, which is the Empire Focus Guild that we operate, reach Conquest as much as I can. We made our goal last week, and this week we have a really good start, which I'm excited about. I think that the goals are everything, and when those goals give you things you can do solo and big points for group stuff, those are always the most fun to jump in and do. And, just doing the gear grind. You guys have mentioned on your show, it's one of the features of SWTOR that you level up to 70, then you level up to 300, and then you grind 300 until you have the gear you want. And, that's the unending cycle. So that's what I've been up to.
It takes forever to do it.
Yeah, I'm about 6,000 unassembled components and a little bit of luck from having my main healer sorcerer being where it needs to be, so he can be the best service to my raid team that's forming, which is going by the name of Goonies Never Say Die. And so we're on a couple weeks of break. It's end of summer, and we're going to reconvene soon and start jumping into hard mode content. I'm really hopeful.
I know you were looking for a DPS maybe. Did you guys end up filling the role?
It looks like we did. So
all right.
If Decion and Fiona get to hear this episode, we have some stuff to talk about when you return, but enjoy your time away.
Oh, that's great. I'll need to ruin it, Marcus.
No, it's fine. It's not really a surprising development. Just some pieces are moving around, and we might have our 8 people to be the founding crew for that raid team. So
I just want to put it out there that if anybody listening to the show, so as everybody knows, Nick and I are on the Starforge server, and Ootini guilds are on the Satil Shan, which is the West Coast server. So if you're on Satil Shan and you're looking for an awesome guild, please shoot them a message or find me in game, and I'll get you connected with them so they can get you a guild invite. Now, Chill, what have you been up to?
Right. My character has been going through Coffee Kotet. Well, I say my character, I'm very much an alcoholic, and most recently I decided to kind of try to make this character a main, and so I've been so I need to get him through all of the content. He's already got a couple hundred CXP levels, but still needs to get to 300, and also needs to get through, like I say, Coffee Kotet. So I got through Coffee earlier this week. It's been going a little slow. I'm now on Kotet, early in Kotet, but it's been going a little slow. I had a couple of days of sort of iffy internet service, and it kind of put a damper on what I was able to do online. But fortunately, it's gotten better, so I was able to join you guys on your show, and hope to pound out a few more and hopefully get through Kotet by the end of the weekend. Seems like a reasonable goal. Kind of missed out on some of the double CXP because of this whole thing, but it's all better now, so or at least it seems to be. We didn't do anything on our end. I just think our service was having a few minor issues, just enough to keep me on edge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. We sure do. Well, I've been having terrible service if we were in my basement, this is, what is it, going back maybe 3 episodes ago.
Yep.
We were disconnecting, and like the whole house was just disconnecting off Wi-Fi, and then it would come back and all that stuff. So, it's, I get it. We rely so much on the interweb, and
when we don't have it, it's like
painful.
Complete chaos.
No Google.
Yeah.
So, now you said you're trying to make this a main. Have you been running any ops or anything to help with your CXP grind, or have you just been doing story content?
On this character, it's been the grind. I have joined the Uteeni guilds a couple of times in the last few months, but not regularly, and not on this character. It's been on some of the other characters. In fact, that's what made me change over to this character, is because the Santa cosplay character I have, which looks awesome, by the way.
It does look awesome.
He's a tank, and it looks like the Jar Jar Joyride is usually kind of full on tanks, so it was kind of redundant. And so I decided to take the Scoundrel, and he's in what's it called? Yeah, like the dirty fighting one, the dot spec. It would be lethality if he was an agent. I can't remember if it's called dirty fighting or not, and it's still on the Scoundrel side. But anyway, so I've been enjoying doing that. The character looks good, and he's fun to play, and I've always enjoyed that spec. Both the longer range version and the Scoundrel sneaky up on them version, which is a lot of fun too. Seeing Kotet yet again, so I definitely know the story well. It's actually fun. I kind of mystery science theater my way through it now, because I know all the beats. So I have like these jokes that I already know. I'm going to say ahead of time.
Oh, that's funny.
and I have like little things that I do on my stream that, like, every time my character's shown in an elevator, I have to hum elevator music for them, stuff like that. So
that's great. That's awesome.
So I've always enjoyed the story anyway. For me, that's one of the main reasons to play SWTOR, and that's just a way to sort of spruce it up if you've done that content quite a bit. So there you go.
Sure. So next,
say what you want about Kotet and Kotfi, but I think that it was actually a brilliant addition to the game for people who solo stream or stream solo content.
Yeah.
If Chill, you gotta look into the silhouette avatars to go at the bottom of your screen and just have them actually mystery science theater that stuff up.
Well, you should somehow take a picture of you behind the computer, and then take your silhouette and put it in there as your mystery science theatering it. That's funny.
Or you could even add it into the mystery science theater silhouettes. Just have yours next to it.
I'm sure they have. Yeah, I'm sure people have the silhouettes pre-made, so that'd be easy to find.
That's great. Nick, what have you been doing this week?
Well, unfortunately, for the sake of the podcast, I've had another relatively tame gaming week this week, but I have been wicked busy with the rest of my life. In gaming stuff, I did play a little bit of Siege, a little bit of FIFA 18, which I'll get into, and a little bit of Overcooked 2, which I will not get into. Marcus is shaking the shit out of his head right now.
Overcooked 2. I don't get it, but
it's a fun couch co-op game. I enjoy it. It's fun to play with a girlfriend, for sure. I can't say anything bad about it. I
can't get Carrie to play a game, period.
Yeah, that's fair.
My wife is my DPS, so
yeah. You guys are awesome. Okay?
Totally opposite end of the
jealousy.
But so I was able to use a feature that I didn't even know about. It's called Share Play on PS4 to play FIFA against my buddy and former podcast guest Al, which is really cool. Share Play lets you and another player play the game as if you're both playing from the same PS4. So in terms of FIFA, it's like as if me and Al were playing couch co-op and just playing the versus mode against each other. But he does not own FIFA at all. He doesn't own the game, so he's basically in my game, on my local PS4. It's really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, that is a really cool feature.
I had no idea that even existed. Al was like, "Hey, I heard of this. It's buried in one of the menus that you can use it. Let's try it." I'm like, "Okay, sweet." So we were playing FIFA against each other for an hour. The only snafu is that there's a time limit, so you can only do that for an hour. I think it's an hour a day.
Unless you pay for it.
I'd imagine you could upgrade and pay for it or something like that. Some kind of extra subscription fee.
So did Al have a download for that, or is it essentially streaming into his console? How does that work?
Yeah, it's streaming into his console. So the first game we played, he was getting a little bit of lag because my Wi-Fi wasn't like blisteringly fast, and then I plugged an Ethernet cable into my PS4 and hardwired it, and I got an extra like 60 megabits per second, and then he said he wasn't getting any lag.
Wow, that's nice.
It was really cool.
Awesome. It's amazing that, I mean, this is the sort of like multiplayer dream that, you know, you would have had like back in the 90s. It's like, oh man, this game's, you either had like the multiplayer where it was like almost turn-based or, you know, or super basic. Right. Or if you had more of a serious multiplayer, it was because you were sitting side by side and there was no other way to get that sort of that experience.
Like Core Control or GoldenEye and stuff like that. That's
right.
That's what we were dealing with.
Right. Yeah, and you know, something else that just popped into my head was that's almost like the best demo ever.
Yeah.
Because, you know, okay, you have a great experience playing it with your friend.
Right.
Now he goes, wow, that was actually really fun. And you guys do that again for another hour, like a week from now or whatever. And then he goes, oh my God. And then he sees somebody selling the game for $25. He buys it and PlayStation wins. Yeah. Because next thing you know, he's buying their version
of
card
packs for the Ultimate Team and all that stuff.
The cartel market stuff for that. And next thing you know, PlayStation's really happy.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of Al even more, he dragged me into his Premier League Fantasy Soccer League, which is pretty awesome. It sort of works like DraftKings, where you have a budget and then you pick the players for your team, and the players that are like projected to do, make the most points cost more money in your budget. So like if you have a 100 million euro budget and you spend 90 million euros on Ronaldo, obviously your team's not going to do well because the rest of your team's going to be terrible. You have to have balance, But so I jumped into the league like a week late because it's, over the course of I don't know how long, and whoever has the most points at the end of the season wins. But I did so well the second week that I'm like in the middle of the pack, mostly because of this one player that I picked. So it was Aguero. Aguero is an Argentine striker from Manchester City, if you guys don't follow soccer. And I had him as my captain, and whoever is your captain gets double points, and he happened to get a hat trick in the game he played this week. So I got 82 points total, which is like the average points per week is like 30 to 40 points, I guess. And I got 82, and 40 of which were just from Aguero.
Wow.
So that was
he had like a whole week's worth of points for you.
Yes, exactly. So he made up for me joining late. It was awesome. And everyone else in the league was pissed because they were like, oh yeah, whatever, just add someone that's, whose money we're going to take. It's fine. Beyond the fantasy soccer stuff, I've just been prepping for the start of classes. It involves a bunch of little chores. I had to get an oil change for my car because I commute. Organize my whiteboards in my room, so I have designated spots for all my classes and, a designated spot for the podcast and stuff like that. I had a bunch of meetings at work, which were basically just mandatory training sessions. They were boring and could have been emails, frankly.
But you wouldn't have read them.
Right, I wouldn't have read them. So I guess that's their way of making you do the training.
Yeah.
Last but not least, I did go to Treehouse, which I kind of do often, but this was a big deal because they had one of my favorite beers of all time, Very Green, and it was a pretty big allotment. It was 8 per person, and then I traded somebody for 2 more. So I got a whole whopping 10 of Very Green, one of which I'm drinking right now.
Back to you prepping for work. So we're not doing the podcast next week because Nick is going to be going back into school mode.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, are we going to record next Thursday? And I got crickets for about 30 seconds. And then I was like, okay, I understand. He's like, I got to get my life back on track. So, which, Doc, I'm sure you remember going through school and how the work-life balance.
Yeah.
I'm kind of intrigued by the name of that beer, Very Green. Is there a reason for that?
Yes.
I mean, is it ecological or marijuana related, or are they just big fans of Fifth Element, or
Fifth Element? I didn't even think of that. No, they have a couple beers. that are they call them rotational beers at Treehouse. They make frequently, then they have ones that they don't make very frequently. One of their rotational beers is a single IPA called Green. Now this one that I like is Very Green because it's the double version of it. So it's a double IPA. But I think some of their early beers were based roughly on marijuana because this one is called Green. Obviously, they have another rotational beer called Haze, and that one is colored purple. So it's Purple Haze.
Purple Haze, right?
Right.
That's awesome.
Hey, Doc, what were you going to say about school, life, work balance?
Oh, I mean, compared to doing the whole dissertation thing, which is where Chill and I's journey began, like now I just have 100 students at any given time. I can't even tell you honestly which one's more difficult to manage. So, right. I don't feel like I left it. So, Nick, enjoy.
Fair enough. The only really crappy part of my schedule is my Wednesdays. I have class from 9 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. on Wednesdays. Largely in part due to a movie class I'm taking. It's 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And then you have a lecture, watch the whole film, and then have a discussion. So I kind of
sounds awesome, actually. But yeah, because of the timing, that makes a long day.
Yes, I'll be sleeping.
Yeah, do you go home in between or something like that, or?
No, I'll stay down there. On Wednesdays I only have like 15, 20 minutes between my classes most of the time, so I'm kind of just going to the next class and getting settled in my seat, and then it starts. But then I have like a 2 different 1-hour windows where I can like go get something to eat or whatever.
Right.
But no, I took a German film class my freshman year of college, and that was the same structure, and I really enjoyed it. So I needed some more credits just to graduate, and this film class happened to fulfill it. So I was like, oh, this one's film genre, so it's a little more advanced, I guess. And although it's a long period of time to be sitting in the classroom, I think it'll be pretty interesting. What
are some of the movies you've seen?
Well, the German film, I haven't started this film genres class yet, but German film class was all films in German with English subtitles, but it went through like the history of German cinema. But started like with like Nosferatu, which is like
love that movie.
Right, one of the original like Dracula movies way back in I think it was the 20s. Or the letter M was also another black and white silent film. It was in German. I forgot what that was about, a murder, I believe. And just through a bunch of different movies, through like World War II themes and how it related culturally and stuff like that.
Right. Did you watch like Riefenstahl?
No, Riefenstahl is. I don't know what you mean.
She was the one who did like the Olympus one and the what's it called? Something of the Will. Triumph of the Will.
Triumph of the Will. Yes,
it's both highly artistic and also absolutely Nazi propaganda at the same time. So it's like really, it's kind of like amazing to watch on a technical level, and it's really disturbing to watch because you know what was done with it.
Yes, we were supposed to watch Triumph of the Will actually, but we had a week of snow or something like that, and we couldn't. She sort of went over the themes that were prevalent in Riefenstahl's like cinematography and like what she pioneered. I don't remember exactly, but it was 4 years ago now. But but we did cover it. It was very interesting.
Like if you look at since this is a Star Wars podcast, if you look at the medal ceremony in the end of A New Hope, that is based on the Triumph of the Will scenes with all the large sort of pageantry filled Nazi lined up in rows and everything. The way that looks in Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will is how George Lucas decided to make that scene look like at the end of The New Hope. And then what's also interesting is like he both used that because of the sort of the pageantry and the power of the group and stuff like that. So there's some themes that were sort of lifted from it, but he also kind of softened it in other ways where it's more about the rebellion and it's a little more human than like the Riefenstahl and the Nazi movie was. So it's kind of interesting to have that sort of interplay where it's very much based on Riefenstahl, but there's also some interesting like counterplay to it as well.
That's an excellent point. I could do there's a lot of sort of Riefenstahl-esque shots, especially like the Vader walking with stormtroopers and stuff. I feel like. Oh sure, yeah, and then they reuse it in like in The Force Awakens with the First Order and that sort of thing. Right, absolutely. We could do a whole episode just on that.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, it's no secret that the Empire was based on the Nazis. I mean, the helmets and everything else are based on actual German helmets from World War II and World War I to a degree.
Well, a lot of the optics are definitely similar.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Well, after that sidebar, I think that's about it for me. Marcus, what have you been up to this week?
Okay, baby's coming. Well, as of last Friday, the baby's coming in 7 weeks, 3 days. As of tomorrow, he's coming in 6 weeks, 3 days. And last Friday, I demoed my kitchen. So mind you, I've been working insane hours for the last 3 or 4 weeks building my kitchen in my shop at night and on the weekends, getting it ready to demo. So I got the demo done. The hardwood floor done.
Hang on. I think you're skipping over a major thing here. Like, when you just say, I got the demo done. I don't think people quite grasp the magnitude of what that is. So Marcus's kitchen went from normal tile floor, cabinets painted, cups, dishes, the whole thing, normal. Everything is full, right? All the cabinets are ripped off the walls. All the appliances are gone. All the plates had to get taken out. Cups, dishes, whatever's out. All the tile flooring's ripped up. All the subflooring's taken out. All of the drywall behind the walls is down, ripped off the walls and hauled out to the dumpster. All of the nails off of the studs have to be taken out. All the screws from the drywall have to be taken out. All of the plaster ceiling, which if you've ever dealt with plaster ever, you know what a fucking nightmare that is, had to be ripped out and then hauled out to the dumpster. Then cleaned properly. And then Marcus starts building things.
So... It was like 13 hours on the last Friday, and then Saturday it was another 12. But either way, it was daunting, and I'm exhausted. And, a customer of mine said to me, I hadn't seen her in, probably a week because we were waiting for the drywall to get done in her bathroom. She looked at me, she goes, "You look really tired." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." But either way, so in 6 days, I've gotten the demo, the hardwood floor, the insulation, all the rough electrical, all the rough plumbing, and the drywall started today, plus all my rough inspections, which I do kitchens for a living, and that process usually takes 3 weeks. So hats off to everybody that works for me and all my electricians and plumbers, because without them, it doesn't happen. But either way, so gaming has been extra light, but on Sunday night, I finally got to run some ops. And, I was kind of torn on what to do, and I kind of failed miserably. It ended up being fun, and Doc is gonna say it was fun. But I decided at the last minute I'm like, double CXP is going on, guys. Let's go do EV and KP, and we'll have some fun and bring alts. So we get through the first boss, and we were like, well, that's not really a lot of CXP, and somebody in the group was like, "No, Marcus, CXP is over." And I'm like, So, and I'm like,
so you just went through it with your alts for no reason.
Well, no, and I think that might have been before the alt switch. Well, either way, once I found that out, so we switched to alts, and Doc was an operative healer, and I've never heard him say that I don't really like this class before. He's usually super positive. He didn't really like the class. And, and I and again, so I brought a mercenary, which you guys hear me bitch and complain about it all the time, because I want him to CXP rank 300, but ranged is terrible. It's boring. You push 6 buttons and you wait for the cast to be over. Marauder, I'm 2 fingers of death. I am basically rubbing my nose against my keyboard, and I'm just destroying the bosses. And I'm probably the highest damage dealer on the team, but the healers have to work really hard to keep me alive because I'm standing in stupid.
Well, I mean, that's not really accurate. You're deliberately jumping into it and staying there.
Yeah.
Well, not all the time. If I've got a really good rotation and I see those numbers are actually really high, I'm like, the healers can keep me alive. It's not hard mode. But in hard mode, I actually have to get out of the circle because I'll be dead, and then everybody will be mad that I cost them 47,000 credits. for one healing bill because I was an idiot, you know?
You're great on either role, Marcus. You need to feel more confident in your gun blazing characters.
My gun blazing. Hashtag gun blazing. That's good. Ooh, that might be the show episode name.
Hashtag gun blazing with.
You're welcome. It just comes out of me.
Yeah, it does. So then last night, I had an awesome opportunity, and I got to go on the Passionately Casual podcast with Jesse Sakari and JT. They're really a lot of fun. I would say if you had to ask me, because now I've been on a bunch of different podcasts for SOTOR, and everyone has its own flavor. And I would say that they're like the morning show podcast.
Okay, yeah.
Like if you ever watch a news morning show like Good Morning America or something like that, it's really lighthearted. Everybody's having a great time, and everybody's laughing, and it's super, super lighthearted.
Yeah.
And I loved it. So I can't thank them enough. And then during the week, Sakari messages me and says, "We're going to interview you." And I'm like, "What? What are you going to interview?" And he's like, "We're going to be asking the hard-hitting questions." And I'm like, "Holy shit. Can you send me those questions?" And he's like, "Nope.
Good luck."
Good luck. And I was like, "Come on." And he finally sent them, and they weren't really that hard of questions, but I think he was just trying to mess with me, and it was great. But I don't tell my wife, and I know she doesn't listen to the podcast, so
You're safe.
Yeah, I'm safe. But today I took my laptop with me to work because I haven't gotten to play, and I was like jonesing to play. So I logged in just to see what was going on with the cartel market, and saw some cool things.
Bought a few cool things, and then you logged out.
No, I didn't buy anything, but it was because I wanted to wait until I was out of work, so there was no credit card purchases. So I was like, "You're playing Star Wars and not working? What is wrong with you?" You know what I mean? I'm just trying to keep it real. But
Nice.
In SOTOR news has been light. Hey, BioWare, please give us a roadmap. I know we just got our PvP upgrades, but we need to know what's coming. Give us something. And that's coming from Marcus B. Give us some info. But they did announce today that they are bringing the Cantina Tour back to New York City. It is coming Thursday. I thought last year it was a Friday. Wow, that's kind of weird. So Thursday, October 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And as everybody knows, Eastern Time is the correct time zone.
Exactly.
No matter where you live in the world, Dr. SOTOR. So, you can meet the devs and make some new friends. And they really do an awesome job about giving away swag. Last year, I think I came home with like 4 T-shirts, which I still have like 3 of them in there upstairs that I'm going to raffle off eventually. Maybe the live show will raffle those off.
Definitely.
That's a great idea. So
if you comment in the chat or something like that.
Yeah, we'll do like just say the word. We'll have Dr. SOTOR come up with a good word because he's always up good for a really, really good word on the spot. Because I would come up with like Diggle or something like that.
Wow, I was going to say you were going to come up with Diggledorf or something, which is your D&D character.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just not as cool. And we'll just rely on Doc for that. But anyway, if you have a chance to go to New York City, even though I'm not the biggest New York City fan, but go to that. My wife and I had a great time. You come in, they give you a couple of drink tickets for free. And usually they have some kind of announcement there about what's coming. So I'm guessing, because last year they had, what's the guy who wrote the Thawne book?
Timothy Zahn?
Timothy Zahn was there. I met the guy. I talked to him for like 15 minutes. He autographed my Chiss Ascendancy poster. I mean, he was just a super duper nice guy. And, hearing his thoughts on the Chiss was actually awesome.
That's cool.
Kind of pushed me. I think after I met him, I listened to the original Thrawn trilogy again. And then, now recently I just finished the new Thrawn Alliances book. But,
those are my next 2 audiobooks to listen to.
They're good. They're not as good as the original trilogy, but they're good.
Yeah.
But also, if you can go to New York City, it's a good time. So then they just had some new additions to the cartel market, which, it's just another, I don't know, it's a reptilian predator, Ambria. I think she's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah, that's very cool looking.
but it's 2,600 cartel coins. I'm probably not going to spend that much on.
Right. And it's from Ambria, but do we know what it's called? I'm not sure where in the game that has appeared.
It doesn't say in the description market.
Yeah, it doesn't look familiar to me. Like, I'm not sure where in the game I've seen it. Usually it's like, oh, okay, those are the ones from, Alderaan or whatever.
Right.
But this one, it's kind of four-legged, lizardy, but
Yeah, I was going to say
dragon-like also.
the aesthetic reminds me of Alduin from Skyrim, honestly, which is the big bad dragon in the storyline. If you ever played Skyrim,
It's very cool looking.
I like it.
And they have another, the Distinguished Armor set, and then there's a new speeder, which I kind of like it just because it's the Alliance fighter. I just like it because they have it parked in the Rishi Stronghold, and I think it looks pretty sweet. And then, is that really...
I don't think that's a speeder. I think that's actually just, it's like a deco of an actual ship.
Oh, all right. Well, then it's a deco. That's pretty cool.
That's less interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Wah, wah. And then you can get a Galt statue, which... So,
okay.
Yeah,
it's kind of nice. I like the fact that he's holding up one of those giant Erodium bars that you steal from the special ship in Kotfi.
Whoa! See, I thought that was a book. I'm like, what? Why is that interesting?
Yeah,
Galt's not reading.
It's one of those Erodium bars, and you can see the little credit symbol on it too.
Oh, that's right.
See, Marcus, you gotta look with your good eyes here.
Yeah, I'll use my good eyes next time.
Hey, Marcus, think about it. They are commemorating the best moment of his life right there. Don't you wish someone would do that for you? I know I have several moments that need to be in statue form.
Okay, so how much is that? I'm going to buy it just because of what you said. It's only 575 cartel coins. I'm going to buy it just because.
That's like less than $6 in this world.
Exactly.
This Friday, join me in the AIE Guild for Mega, Episode 3, Revenge of the Hutts. Where, you say? The Rishi Stronghold. When? 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us for some Hut Ball and some good old PvP. And we're all going to shoot Max. Come join us.
So if all this sounds fun to you, which, come on.
How could it not?
Exactly. Go to aie-guild.org and get our Discord information and jump in the SOTOR channel and ask for a guild invite. Now that I'm an officer, I can actually get you in the game, or I'll just make Dent do it because, why not? But you can come play with us, and, if you want to run ops, there's a lot of times where the Death Star Troopers need to fill in, and we would love to play this game with you or any of the games that AIE plays. Nick, you want to take a break?
I sure do.
All right, let's do it.
We'll be back. And we're back. So today, we'd like to sort of go through the progression and growth of Ootinicast, specifically how they've got to where they are today, and maybe some trials and tribulations that they've conquered along the way. So first and foremost, what year did the podcast start?
Sure. Well, Tio and I got together. Well, we were already friends online. He's in Australia and I'm in the United States, but we had met because I was playing, this is, a while ago, so World of Warcraft, and because I had a night job at the time, I was looking for a server where it wasn't completely dead when I was playing, so I settled on an Australian server, and I also found this podcast called Bind on Equip that had its own guild and all that sort of thing, so I was listening to that podcast and belonged to that guild, and Tio was in that guild as well and was listening to the podcast. And he ended up becoming a raid leader, and I was in that raid for a long time. Then, SWTOR sort of came around, and then it was sort of coming out in the news. This is like early-ish 2011, and then Tio and I went to Tio, and well, the reason for this was not only by an Unequipped, but also another podcast from someone who was in the guild named Hypnotoad, who had his own podcast. This is sort of a general interest podcast. Unfortunately, it's not going anymore. But some people will recognize the name Hypnotoad because he was a guest on a lot of our early shows. But anyway, so I had like started to send in like little audio files and stuff like that for their shows. So I'd sort of caught the bug. And I didn't really know anything about how to do a podcast. I just thought it would be fun to do. And then but I knew, so I knew I wouldn't be able to do it on my own. And so I sort of started casting around. I just sort of asked Tio, just, because we got along really well, and he was the raid leader and clearly had a good head on his shoulders and all that sort of thing. And I didn't really know if he had caught a bug for it or not, but it turns out he had. He was really interested in this Star Wars MMO and wanted to do a podcast, but hadn't really kind of put together a plan himself either. So that's sort of where it started. We started having sort of these secret meetings and, just sort of preparing because, we didn't know what was going to happen with our current guild and all that sort of thing. We actually did play World of Warcraft into a little bit of SWTOR, and then it was like, okay, this is too much, and we both sort of gave it up in favor of SWTOR after a few months. But they're all still really nice people, and we still like them and everything. But I don't play World of Warcraft anymore, and Tio, as we now know, is way too busy to actually play any games, unfortunately. And I'm sure he'll get back to gaming at some point in his life, but this is not the time for him. Sure. And just FYI, we did sort of a video on this. It's called Ootini Inception. It's actually, I just verified this today just because I wanted to make sure it was actually still available. And it is still on Vimeo. If you do a search on Google for Ootinicast Inception or Ootini Inception, you'll find this video, and you'll see it's from 3 years ago. And I had not lost weight yet, and which will be very, very obvious when you watch it. And it does go through some of this in a little more detail, but these are all the sort of the highlights. So this is now just a few months before the launch of SWTOR, which is December 2011, and we launched in October, so we had a few weeks, basically, a couple months, basically, a few weeks to actually get some shows under our belt and so on.
Right.
And we just kind of took it from there. At first, we did shows in sort of this format where we were recording on a Hangout or whatever with each other, but we weren't doing it live to an audience. And Hypnotoad, our regular guest, and who was, like I said, had his own podcast, finally said to us, you should really do it in front of a live audience, and it adds a little energy. Sometimes, people ask you questions that you wouldn't have thought of yourself, or give you information that you might not have, right to hand, that sort of thing. And so we did go live after a while, and so if you look out at the Ootinicast YouTube history, it starts I don't remember, 50, let's say, 30 to 50, I don't know, something like that, episodes in, and all of a sudden it goes live. So before that, we did it just as a podcast, and then we did it as a live show that then gets edited into a podcast. And yeah, we've just kind of been going ever since.
Right. Now, this is more of a personal and podcast question. How did Tio, as your co-host and friend, affect you, just yourself personally when he left the show?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, it obviously, excuse me, I'm going to have a drink.
Sure.
Well, I had known for a long time that, and in fact, when we were doing the run-up meetings to the podcast, before we even episode 1, we both sort of agreed that we had listened to other podcasts, especially like World of Warcraft podcasts, where the the podcasters had kind of moved on from the game. They weren't actually playing World of Warcraft, but they were still doing the podcast because of whatever, because momentum, or they enjoyed the process, or they enjoyed, the socializing, or whatever, whatever reasons there were, they were still doing the podcast for a game that they weren't actually playing. And especially Tio was very sort of adamant that we should not be doing that. Like if one or both of us stopped playing the podcast, we should move on. And unfortunately, that is what happened in Tio's case. He had a kid a couple years ago, and that was already busy enough. Then his job picked up, and he went from like full-time to part-time to full-time, and then he had a second kid. So he's been hopping around, and he really unfortunately had not played SWTOR for a year-ish almost. I mean, he'd obviously gotten online a few times to like log in to get these rewards, little things like that, and to give the in-game gifts for the people who sent in tips and won the contests, stuff like that. But he hadn't seriously played the game for the better part of a year, and he just realized that he needed to, sort of follow his own rules, and since it wasn't, it didn't look like he was going to be coming back to the game really soon, he decided it was time to head out. And I was bummed, but I because he had kind of mentioned often enough that he hadn't been playing the game, both on the show and also just between him and myself, obviously it's a surprise in the sense that I didn't know the timing, but it kind of felt like something that was going to happen.
Sure, that makes sense. So I have a question for sort of the both of you, but Dr. Sortor, what was going on with you sort of leading up to you first getting involved with Utini? And then eventually, how did it come to be that you became a full-time host?
Okay, so, I mean, it depends how far back we want to go. I mean, if we have time to time travel a little bit,
I would take a trip in the way back machine.
All right, so, my excitement for this game really goes back to when I was in high school and I got my laptop, getting ready to start college the following fall. Had a birthday, my parents bought me a laptop. I put KOTOR on it because that's way more important than Microsoft Word and PowerPoint.
Of course it is.
100%.
When you're getting ready for school. So, that was my introduction to Darth Revan, and the idea that Star Wars without a Skywalker is still outstanding, one of the best things ever.
Yep.
And,
100%.
So of course I was dead set on what I was going to do. I was going to major in psychology, and I was going to try to be one of the best psychologists ever. Right. And so then, you keep going. And I remember very clearly, I switched to counseling for my master's. So that's not quite psychology. It's related. And I remember getting ready for a midterm, and I'm on that same laptop, and I get a news story from IGN that says, Lucas or EA, BioWare, whatever is going to create an MMO in the Star Wars universe that's not Star Wars Galaxies. And it's going to be in the Old Republic. I was like, that might be the best idea ever.
Absolutely.
So I know it took years and years, and it would pop up in the video game news from time to time. And at that time, I had no plans at all to do a doctorate in counselor education. So I just wanted to be a counselor at that point. I wanted to finish school and only read books the rest of my life that I want to read. And then I just decided I'm going to go back. Like, I can do so much more in this field. And so in fall 2011, looking back on it now, everything about me sort of crystallized right there. I started my doc program, and I got to start playing Star Wars: The Old Republic in December. A couple days after it launched. It took me a few days to run over to Best Buy to get a copy, and I created the tune that I still play now, regardless of which server. They're named the same thing. So,
nice.
Sith Sorcerer, and started after I finished my main story. I still love the game so much, and I just started in my job driving a lot, realizing I can listen to podcasts, and Ootinicast became part of my rotation. And I started realizing as I was reading journal articles about online gaming, because that's the thing that we're going to have to study in this field. And I understand these things, so I'm like way ahead of the people who are training me, because I understand what these games are. I don't have to read a journal article to understand what group content is and how a game that has 100 hours of content can be played for a decade and you still haven't done everything.
Right? No, that is the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of the setup, as far as trying to get through the story quickly. So I knew that I cannot bias my sample. I can't become a public figure. I can't join a guild and actually meet people. I just have to play. Like I was in several different guilds with some of my tunes, but I never became part of a raid team. I never became an outspoken member. I was anonymous essentially. And, there are several podcasts that have come and gone that I was actually in their guilds. And by extension, you could guess they kind of knew me, even though I never said, "Hey, I'm the future Dr. Swotor. Nice to meet you," because that would have been really bold. So I got to that point where I had clearance to get my name out there, say, this is what I'm researching, this is how I'm going to do it. Who wants to sign into SurveyMonkey and answer some questions? And so I created a spreadsheet of all the podcasts that I was still listening to. And I just tried to, I organized it, who actually provides their contact information, Twitters, emails, and then just one random weekend in 2016, I was at a science museum with my family, and I sent a direct message to Tio and Chill, and was, because I was actually listening to Ootinicast on the way to the science museum, and just this is my first attempt. So people out there, you don't normally succeed this big on your first attempt at things in life. I just sent it out. I was like, I'm going to enjoy the time at the Science Museum. I've been working on this project for 20 consecutive days, and this is the only thing I'm doing today for this. I'm going to be with my family. But sorry, Chill, if it was you or Tio, I don't remember. But within 5 minutes, I got a response and said, yeah, let's talk. We'd love to have you on the podcast and help you out whatever way you can.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's pretty cool.
Like in that moment, everything I was worrying about, all that negative talk of you're never going to get enough people to do this project. You're going to have invested all this time into studying a video game with psychology, and you're going to have to switch to something that's more traditional, like CBT for, adolescents who do treatment for drug abuse or something.
Right.
And I didn't have to do that. I got to research this MMORPG, and just ever since I got that information, my goal from time to time, whenever I felt like Ootinicast hasn't heard from me in a while, I'm just going to send a message and be like, hey, this is what's going on in the game. I have something to say. And every time, whether Tio got to the message first or Chill did, it was always like, yeah, let's do that in 2 weeks. Yeah, let's work that in. Are you free next month? And so just that journey of being a listener and having that feeling like I can't be a guest, but you're listening to these podcasts and you love this game, and sometimes you hear something, it's like, I have something I want to share with everyone who plays this game.
Yes.
You're kind of wishing that you were a guest.
Yes.
So
that's all I can say. I can't agree more. That is the most truthful statement you've said that hit me, because that's me in complete a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reason why we're recording this right now.
Exactly. So, Sorry to break that up.
No, but that's who I am. And so, I hope a lot of people who listen to Ootinicast download this episode, because I actually think it's really neat what we're creating here with this conversation. But so, just listening and, the months where Tio would reiterate that I haven't been able to play, guys. And, I just got a feeling like I'm teaching now. I'm not writing this dissertation. That's done, and that's who I am now. Writing a research article is so much easier in a lot of ways than writing a dissertation. So, I'm very busy professionally, but I just felt like if I started thinking to myself, and Marcus, I met you in December, joined Death Star Troopers, and I just started to feel, listening to Working Class Nerds, and I started putting those pieces together. Like, if Chill ever needs a person, I'll see if I can do it. And so, I was Marcus, you were on the episode where Tio's letter was read, and I was actually able to watch it in the background while I'm grading my papers at work in my office. And so I was just floored because I was listening because you were the guest, Marcus, and I try to tune in when you're on things. So I was just like, okay, well, do I have time to send Chill a message? Of course I can send Chill a message. Do I have time to back up what that message could be?
Sure.
And so a couple days later, I sent it, and now I'm sitting here. So, like that person who just plays a game alone with his wife and doesn't get involved in the community because you don't want to create a research bias, and now I'm on really the show that helped me understand how MMOs work, and the tips of the week they used to be super helpful for me. Not that they're not helpful, but you get to a point where you understand these tips before they're done being read. But I remember this is my first MMO, and it's been like, oh, you can do that? Oh, that's so much quicker. Wait, I can get to that planet this way? I can gear up a certain... So, like, just wow. I still can't fully believe everything that it took for that story to be what I get to share on this episode of the podcast. But that's how I got, that's my story behind the scenes of Ootinicast.
Yeah. And, what's crazy is, people, you're talking about your dissertation and online gaming and people and how you were like, I don't want to say the word invisible in your other guilds, right? I didn't mean you were invisible, but I met you, like you said, in December. And I mean, I have your phone number and we talk on a regular basis outside of gaming. And it's crazy the connection you can get with your friends, even if you're not in front of them like Nick and I are right now. And, now to see you progress to the Ootinicast,
right,
and, the life that you're bringing to the show, and it's no disrespect to Chill or Tio or anything, but like you said, when you hear a co-host for a year say, oh, no gaming, and you understand the pain he's going through, or I sure do, because I have a 2-year-old running around, plus my career, plus another one on the way. My life is insane too. And now the new life that you guys have brought to your show, it's invigorating.
Sure.
And I get excited now to sign in on the Thursdays that you guys, do your show, and hashtag hope it goes every week. Oops, I shouldn't have said that. Did I say that? But, it's great. And I my hat's off to you guys because, what you're doing with kind of it's almost like what Max and Seema do on the Escape podcast, how you're bringing your guild into it and involving them even more. And now your co-host is, on the progression raid team, and, Chill, you're the voice of the whole guild, and you always will be. But now there's like that new atmosphere, and Fee and Deck coming on the show. to talk more about what you guys are doing in Guild. I mean, every time I listen to your show, and it's awesome. I need to create a tune or transfer a tune to the Satil Shan, because the Jar Jar Joyride sounds so fun. And, that's like the mandatory fun night for us over, with the AIE Guild. And
right.
It's an open forum. Anybody can come. As long as we have room, you can come. And it's exciting. But going with that, chill now. Now, Doc Sotor asks you about coming on the show. How did you feel when he said that? Were you shocked? Were you excited? How did that hit you? Because, part of it, Teal left and you were, I don't want to say you were kind of solo. So now, were you thinking a host, or were you what was going through your mind at that point?
Right. So I definitely was planning on finding a co-host, as soon as Tio let me know that he would be leaving. So, but I didn't know who that would be necessarily at the time. This is before, I got a contact from Dr. Swotor.
Sure.
What I had in my mind was it would almost... I was willing to let the process go really long if I couldn't find someone who had not been on the show before. I was really hoping I could find someone who had been a guest, because it's nothing against other people. It's just there's a certain tone to the podcast, I guess, or a certain almost personality that the podcast develops over time.
Yes.
And you definitely want it to evolve with the new co-host. And I'm not saying that Dr. Swotor. It's kind of the opposite. I want Dr. Swotor to make the show different and bring his own thing. That's kind of the whole point. But on the other hand, there's certain key aspects of it that
how about we
I
say
really wanted. And so, that would include just a general sense of friendliness, of interest and enthusiasm about the game, and a certain. Just a certain
personality.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a personality range that I was looking for, because we've had guests who've gone all along the spectrum, and they're all fun. But I think it helps if it's something more in tune, sort of with what we've had on the show before, and I think that does help. And so it was kind of a short list, and I was actually. Even before the message, I was thinking, gosh, Dr. Swotor would be really good, but he's teaching and he's really busy. And it's I was almost afraid to even ask him, but I was considering it. And then, and it's oh, message. Well, okay. And because the thing about Dr. Swotor is he started out, from my perspective now, I'm talking when he first came on the show, there's a certain type of guest that I love that only happens once in a while, and it's someone who brings something special, especially if it happens to be about their own personal set of knowledge and skills and so on. So when we had Per Composer on, and he talks about Star Wars music, amazing guest because of that. And it was the same with Dr. Swotor. Not only he came on and we learned about what he was going to do for his dissertation and how it was going to work, and then he came back later to show to say how it was going and give us some of the early numbers, and then he came back again with some of the final numbers, and they were all amazing episodes. And then we also had him on just as a guest once or twice, and so I saw him both ways. I saw him, he was both this really amazing guest from a technical point where he has a very strong point of view. He has technical skills and just sort of knowledge that feeds into the game, because frankly, I mean, psychology of gaming is quietly one of the most important aspects of an MMO, because it's it really touches everything about SWTOR and everything about MMOs in general. I mean, it's almost the computer is the tool just to just to be a conduit for human psychology, practically. I mean, you can almost look at it as being that basic. And so it's really cool that Dr. Swoter has that technical aspect, but he's also just a really good guest in general. Like, he's smart and he's enthusiastic and he knows about the game and He's an and kind of guest. Yes. And now he's an and kind of co-host, and I'm really happy to have him on.
Awesome.
That is awesome. So I have one more question for Dr. Sotor. What challenges have you found in becoming a co-host to the longest-running Sotor podcast?
Well, I have to not let Tio down.
I'd say that's a pretty big challenge.
Yeah, that is a pretty big challenge.
The last couple, I don't know, has it been 2 months? It feels like we're getting at 2 months when we co-hosting. Mm-hmm. I've had a few interactions with Tio, and they're all super awesome, just like all the other interactions that we've had the last 2 years. And, it's humbling. It's different too. Like, I don't have to talk as much when I'm on the episode because I'm there to help the episode happen, as opposed to check off all the boxes of what I told Chill and Tio I'm going to talk about.
Sure.
So I'm there now more to help make sure Decion or Fiona fully describe what we're doing in the guild. I'm there to help get Chill through the news, and I'm there to maybe ask a couple follow-up questions, most recently for Swotorista, or whoever the guest ends up being. Is I'm more a mechanism of the show, and providing commentary on the game that way. And I just think it's really cool to work with Chill because all those nice things he said, going back 5 years ago, listening to the podcast in my car on the way to work or whatever, and being, someday this person is going to spend more than 90 consecutive seconds saying how awesome you are. That's crazy. But it's been such a blast to set aside that time on Thursday nights to become part of a guild. Being anonymous in a big guild or a small guild or a moderately sized guild has been my life. And then for years, I kind of built a small guild around me that served to be a raid team. And there's been 3 specific iterations of my raid team that have, be a couple hard modes that aren't KP or EV. We've had those bright moments, and then people stop or they move, but that's not really guild life. So, that's another huge thing I'm enjoying, is being part of Utini Nights and Utini Rage, and actually accomplishing some of those conquest point levels and having a Jar Jar Joyride, which, I've done AIE's mandatory fun night, and Max and Seema are awesome, and they're people I've met along the way too. And but I have a tune in AIE, and AIE is so awesome. So if you're on the Starforge, don't just be sad that I left the server mostly, but join AIE.
Yes.
But I really lost what I was trying to say, Nick. Sorry.
It's okay. The original question was, what challenges have you found in becoming a co-host?
You just want to keep Ootinicast existing as Ootinicast. And so anything I add, it needs to add on that layer of everything that makes the show great already. So we still need to have the Sarlacc digest, and we still need to do tip of the week, and we need to get engaging guests that complement what Chill and I are trying to do. And, I have to make sure not to talk over people, which, sometimes you have a really great idea, but it's not the right time. And when it is, it's also the right time for the next topic. So you just want everyone on the show to be able to contribute the best of what they're bringing to it. And as co-host, I just try to be in tune to that. Is
Sure.
I can talk about what I want to talk about with Chill next episode if it's really that important. And are we bringing people into SWTOR? Are we making the game sound great? Because it really is. They may spend a year developing a content area you don't like, but it's a great game. And when they focus on story, they knock it out of the park. When they focus on an op, Gods from the Machine is an op. Okay. I haven't gotten to really jump into the hard mode / master mode stand-in for it yet, but it just seems to be doing what it's supposed to do to us as players. Stronghold, Rishi is the most intricate stronghold that in 2018 they could have thought about making. And it just goes on and on. Like, BioWare has created something really awesome that keeps Star Wars alive for people who don't enjoy dying every 6.2 seconds in Battlefront 2. So
that is certainly me whenever I try to play Battlefront.
I love Battlefront 2, but 6.2 seconds is generous, probably.
Sure.
So, I just love the game, and I know a lot about it with numbers, and in the way that a lot of people know things about the game from experience, and it going just the final point, what Chill said about the psychology of gaming, that the computer is a tool, the game really unlocks every element of who we are. If you recorded the movement of the code and what is underneath the sprite of your character, the pixels, and you were able to take the 100 days of playing that my main character has logged since 2011, who Dr. SWTOR is at such a detailed level, not to creep everyone out. And I don't think BioWare really wants to know us like that. We're their customers. But I once read an article by Nick Yee before I really got deep into this, and he created one of the questionnaires for my dissertation. He gave me permission to use it, and super great guy, really awesome researcher. And he did a similar thing with World of Warcraft is what I've done with SWTOR now. Mm-hmm. And he just wrote in that article something that stuck with me, and it's the perfect personality test. I'm paraphrasing, but the perfect personality test would really be, it already exists. It's inside the MMO.
Right.
So that idea kind of grew to be like, well, what can I do to enhance the meaning of that in whatever little way I can? And, so I try to just bring a little bit of all of that to the show. And if it works, then great. And if it doesn't, I'm going to do my best to notice it and keep the show going and keep it great.
All right. So we're going to open up the secret treasure chest, which is Ootinicast right now. We're going to open it up, and I want to know and let everybody know, what direction would you like the show to go in? And will you change the format? And are we going to go back to every week?
Dun, dun, dun!
Spoilers! No, seriously,
Working class nerds exclusive.
Exclusive.
All right. Well, as far as every week goes, that's a big ask, especially given the schedule for Dr. SWTOR and so on. Also, I think at this point in the game, I mean, it has been out since late 2011, and there, it's a very mature game at this point. So I think it made sense. Like, the reason that Tio and I did go every 2 weeks, and that happened during Tio's run on the show. It was because of Tio's schedule technically, but he was finding, when he was gathering his information for the news, because that was his baby at the time. that it was getting a little bit harder, even though the devs are very good about trying to get information out quickly, trying to get information out regularly. But, it is a mature game at this point. It's a little bit harder to get enough information for like a full show every week. I mean, we could do it, but at some point it would feel a little stretched because the news is kind of an important, well, not kind of, it is an important part of the Ootinicast.
Sure.
And so as far as that goes, if it looks like, let's say we know that there's going to be an expansion. We don't know the exact timing, but let's say the run up to the expansion, let's say there's tons of news every week coming out. I would consider, asking Dr. Swotor, hey, can we do a couple of extra shows and actually hitting every Thursday instead of every other Thursday for a little while. And maybe that would work out. I could see that. But for now, I think we'll keep it every other week. As far as changing the format, not in any major way, because, I mean, I think part of the attractiveness of a show as that's been around as long as ours is that people know what to expect, and like making some sort of like crazy change, I think would be actually a mistake to me.
Sure,
that's my point of view. As far as direction to take the show in changing that, I'm fine with like slow evolution. Like I said, don't want to make any big format changes, but I'm happy with like letting the show evolve, because I mean we have Dr. Swotor on as a co-host, and I do expect it to evolve. And I know that Dr. Swotor has some ideas about things that he'd like to do, potentially regularly or occasionally, and that's all good. So I'm looking forward to working with him on that and getting the show some changes that way. Yeah.
Great.
I hope that answers the question.
It absolutely does. I have one more question before we wrap it up. Mm-hmm. It's actually a two-parter. When is your next episode, and where can we find you guys?
Right. Well, we do it every other Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific is our normal time, although we change it occasionally if the guests require it or whatever. So this coming Thursday, what is that? The 30th. Of course, it's the 30th, is the next episode. So August 30th at 6 p.m. Pacific will be our next show. We do actually show the raw recording of the show live. We do it as a hangout, and then we put it out on Twitch. So it's twitch.tv/Ootinicast, or you can go to ootinicast.com/live, and it just has a link to it. And we do the show live, we edit it, and then typically it goes out the next day. The exact timing is up in the air, but that's how that goes. So the live show will be next Thursday, August 30th, 6 p.m. Pacific is the presumed time at this point, and then the actual podcast will go out the next day, the 31st.
And how can everybody find you on Twitter?
Right. Well, at Ootinicast is the show, and that's obviously a great way to just get a hold of us in general. It's at Dr. Swotor for Dr. Swotor, if I may, may, Dr. Swotor. And then I'm at Brandon L. Starr, BrandonLSTA R, and that's just my name, of course.
Awesome. And Doc, how can we watch your awesome streams on Twitch?
When I stream, it's usually a operation content or what I hope to consider more difficult flashpoints. So if you like group content, that's usually when I choose to stream, and that's twitch.tv/Dr. Swotor. And as Joe mentioned, on Twitter, I'm at Dr. Swotor. And I've done, if we have success in the raid, you can also check out my YouTube channel if you want to see what we accomplished or how. I try to be pretty engaging. I'm always excited to meet people who enjoy Ootinicast, or even people who are following me on Twitch before I got to become the co-host. So there's a small group of people who are those two. But I really enjoy streaming. It hasn't been happening as much just because the summer is challenging. But I expect once our progression team is established that there will at least be a few nights a week where I can routinely get into Twitch. Death Star Troopers on Sunday with you, Marcus. That usually is a streaming night as well. And if I'm able to get into the Jar Jar Joyride, that's Friday. So it's sort of like a between 1 and 3 nights a week kind of thing.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is great.